You are listening to In Conversation with Jennie and Mark.
Hello, everyone. I am the Reverend Jenny Adams of Holy Trinity Church, Prince Consort Road, South Kensington.
Well, that's a very formal introduction. I'm the Reverend Mark Adams of, to give it its full title, St. Margaret of Antioch, Barking. And this is In Conversation with Jennie and Mark. And as you might notice, if you're watching on YouTube, if you're listening, this will mean nothing to you. But Jennie is looking very correctly attired in her collar and looking very good. Told she was the coolest vicar ever yesterday, apparently, weren't you, by someone who stopped you in the street to tell you this?
The coolest vicar they had ever seen.
There you go. So if you got any other clergy that listen to this, you're just going to have to suck it up. I am not correctly attired because it's hot, hot, hot. As those of us who would know, a big cook, little cook would say. It's hot, hot, hot. Anyway, enough of this frivolity and nonsense. We are looking at this week's passage for the first Sunday after Trinity, because yes, we've got through all of that stuff from Advent through to Trinity Sunday, and now it's green, go, go, go green all the way till, kind of November, isn't it?
I like green.
Yeah, it's your favourite colour, as we started, isn't it? Green.
Yeah, green for growth.
Green for growth. Get you. You're so corporate CME now.
I'm so holy. Right, let's have a look at the reading.
Come on, let's have a look at the passage then. Trinity 1. We're going to look at the gospel reading. It is Luke 8 and verse 26 to 39. Jesus heals the Gerasene demoniac.
Okay, we're ready. Then they arrived at the country of the Gerasenes, which is opposite Galilee. As he stepped out on land, a man of the city who had demons met him. For a long time he had worn no clothes, and he did not live in a house, but in the tombs. When he saw Jesus, he fell down before him and shouted at the top of his voice, "What have you to do with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? I beg you, do not torment me." For Jesus had commanded the unclean spirit to come out of the man. For many times it had seized him. He was kept under guard and bound with chains and shackles, but he would break the bonds and be driven by the demon into the wilds. Jesus then asked him, "What is your name?" He said, "Legion," for many demons had entered him. They begged him not to order them to go back into the abyss. Now there on the hillside, a large herd of swine was feeding, and the demons begged Jesus to let them enter these. So he gave them permission. Then the demons came out of the man and entered the swine, and the herd rushed down the steep bank into the lake and was drowned. When the swineherd saw what had happened, they ran off and told it in the city and in the country. Then people came out to see what had happened, and when they came to Jesus, they found the man from whom the demons had gone sitting at the feet of Jesus, clothed and in his right mind. And they were afraid. Those who had seen it told them how the one who had been possessed by demons had been healed. Then all the people of the surrounding country of the Gerasenes asked Jesus to leave them, for they were seized with great fear. So he got into the boat and returned. The man from whom the demons had gone begged that he might be with him, but Jesus sent him away, saying, "Return to your home and declare how much God has done for you." So he went away, proclaiming throughout the city how much Jesus had done for him. So I think, as we start,
tell us, Jennie, what you think.
I think we need to name the two elephants in the room.
Well, okay, let's not just one elephant, but two elephants. Go on then. Elephant number one.
Elephant number one is about demon possession, because it always makes us a little bit twitchy. Is it still demon possession? Is it mental health? Is there still demon? Was there demon possession, or is it stuff like that? So that's elephant.
Okay, so we've named elephant number one. Let's name elephant number two, and then we'll bring elephant number one back. Yeah, is that the plan?
Okay. Elephant number two. Jesus seems to have destroyed somebody's livelihood. Those pigs belonged to the swineherds. Well, they belonged to people, and
Okay.
they've now drowned.
Okay. Right. Let's come back to elephant number one then, shall we? I was thinking a bit about this because I must admit it's one of those passages when you turn it up, I just sort of think because it is. I know that some people talk about demon possession a lot. We don't. It's not, it's not what we do
Maybe our
tend to
thing,
do,
is
is
it?
it? We don't see that as it's not our worldview. We don't see the world in the same way. We're not going to put that on people in the same way that even if we saw this kind of behavior that we don't do that really, do we? We don't see this in the same way. We don't have the same worldview. So
No, but I think we can see the connections. So even if we look at it from a mental health perspective, and we've both had our challenges over the years, there is an oppression, a feeling of feeling trapped, and a little bit sometimes out of control of your own mind.
yeah,
So I think we don't need to shy away from the idea that it could be mental health, because I think in many ways we associate with that more, and as I say, we associate the feeling of trapped, and actually exclusion a lot of the time as well, feeling judgment, not in the same way. We're not hanging around naked in tombs, but we it
I
wouldn't be.
think in saying that there is a danger, right? So I think there's a danger to name with this particular elephant. Has a
Mm,
name, and that is that we wouldn't certainly be wanting to equate those two in terms of. I mean, you're right. We've both struggled with sort of mental
mm,
health kind of issues or concerns over the years, and it doesn't help if someone then comes along and says, oh, this is a sort of sign of demon possession, is it? So we want to kind of make clear that I don't think that's what you're saying. You're saying, no, what I want to say is it's more a kind of, this is a understanding how we might interpret it today. Is that what you mean?
yes, that's more of it. That what we would see today as some challenges with mental health was always seen as demon possession,
Yeah.
or what
I
we
was coming
assume.
at from I think that's an interesting angle. I was thinking about it from a slightly different angle, is that we would use the term, I we wouldn't call it demon possession, but we would use the term sometimes of possession, wouldn't we? So we might say I was, or somebody is possessed by anger, or possessed by fear, or those sort of negative things, wouldn't we? And I think we would use that language in that kind of way, or possessed by hatred. And I just wonder whether that's also an interesting way of kind of looking at it. That well, I mean, even looking at what's going on in the world today, I mean, it feels like we're possessed by a kind of fear, a hatred, you know, and people are profiting off that and making, gaining power from it. So, what's going on with that? Is that a helpful way to look at it?
Would we use those terminology? Would we on a day-to-day basis say people were possessed? I mean, I suppose you could.
I'm not saying that I would
I'm not
generally use
sure.
it, but I
Yeah,
don't think it's an idiom which is a million miles away from the way that we think, and that sort of. I mean, I've actually been reading a book about, as Jennie I've been reading a book about emotional intelligence and the way that our emotions can kind of hijack and almost, people will do all sorts of things that in the moment which isn't rational because they almost feel like they're taken over by their emotions. So you could use a sort of, you know, um,
yeah,
a kind of language of possession around that without necessarily saying it, attributing it to demons, but we would understand it.
yeah.
And
No,
that's not,
I
yeah.
would also say that we can get a little bit too tied up in these two particular elephants, and then miss the amazing story of freedom that we've
Yeah.
got,
The
freedom and
amazing story. Well,
rehabilitation.
yes. Okay.
I think
Yeah.
there's also a danger, because that when I read it, that's immediately the two things that I look at. But actually, it's not really where the focus should be, is it? It's one of those. It, it's the red herring in it in some ways.
Well, I think, yes, of course, we're talking about actually an amazing story of freedom from possession. And I think actually, and in Manso's, I wonder whether, if we frame it as I was possessed by jealousy or I was possessed by anger or I was,
Mm.
overcome, maybe is a better word. But, and actually that Jesus frees this man from these things. And, we pray maybe not maybe dramatically and instantly, or maybe over time, Jesus can, we believe, free us from these things that overcome us and quote unquote possess us. That's kind of where I was going in some ways with it.
So I was looking back to see whether I ever actually used it in a sermon, but have you ever read Ched Myers?
No, I picked it up the other day from your bookshelf and thought, because I knew that you were looking, I knew you were, I thought I knew it was a book, and I thought I ain't got time to read that at the moment. This is a massive book, but I do know that you've read it and taken some things from it, haven't you? But he's more in Mark.
Yeah, so obviously this is a story that's in Mark's gospel as well. So
yes,
he talks that Mark's gospel is written politically.
yes.
And that the pigs were equate to, a bit like we would call, well, we don't, but we would call the police pigs. They would equate to the government officials in the thing.
Where did that come from? Okay, that's what he says in the book, right?
Yes, that's what I'm saying. I'm quoting. It's like, well, modern day terms, yeah, police are known as pigs, not towards
yes,
nice,
in a very derogatory way. Yeah,
not but yeah. So and he would say that it could be talking of government officials, and the whole thing is not meant to be taken literally, but the people of the time would have known it as like almost a satire. That's the word I'm looking for. Okay. Satire.
Right.
I realise now that although that's obviously stuck in my mind for this story, and I think at college I wrote quite a lot about it, I had a quick flick back and realised that I've never used it in a sermon.
So just help me a little bit more, because I'm not quite understanding what the metaphor in his terms then, or what on these terms is trying to say.
Well, if only I could remember. But
what are we putting into the government officials, or are we thinking that they're not particularly in those terms, Roman soldiers and
I wish I could tell you exactly, but it was all a story of being oppressed by the Romans.
Okay.
And derogatory terms, but yes, for the officials.
So we're getting rid of all of our stuff onto
and the idea was, yes, that they were then running off into the sea, and that the people would have been laughing at this image of right. Like being able to overthrow, so to speak, all their things.
Yeah. And of course, Legion is would that have
that's the thing about
the legions, isn't it? The Roman legions, is that the connection as well? Yeah.
As I say, although it's kind of lodged itself in my memory, I've never actually used it, I realise, as I flick back through my sermons. But I'm raising it now in case anybody wants to read Ched Myers.
Okay, so if you want to follow up on Ched Myers, and if you want to have any more questions, then ask Jenny, because I've never read it. So, I think coming back to your elephant number 2 then, around this, well, yes, okay, I can't get to, perhaps I'm not too excited about the fact that he damages these people's livelihoods. Maybe I should think about that a bit more, but I was wondering whether there's a sort of element of the scapegoat here. The thing in ancient Israel where they lay all the sins on the head of the goat, and one gets slaughtered and then one gets sent out into the desert. And is there a kind of all this? I'm supposed thinking of my theme of possession and things that oppress us. It's almost like they've got to go somewhere. I mean, they do plead with Jesus in this, don't they, to go into the abyss? But we've got to do something with them. We've got to process them. We've got to, all this angst that we feel, this stuff that's getting onto us. We've got to do something. We've got to go somewhere. And
possibly. I mean, I've not really thought about that. I just kind of assumed that he wanted to make a bit of a show. So it's not one of those where he's healed quietly and then said, "Don't tell anybody," is it? The man tries to come with him and he's like, "No, you go and tell everybody what's happened."
I think in Mark it will say, "Don't tell anyone," but but Mark's much more worried about that, isn't he?
Yeah, writing for a different audience, I think. But yeah. Because this one is go and tell everybody.
Yeah. Well, yes, okay. So it makes a mark. It makes a bit of a. So you're not picking up my kind of scapegoat thing? Is that not floating your boat? That's it.
Well, I made the joke of scape pig, but it went unnoticed.
Oh, sorry, scape pig. Well, yeah, it would be a scape pig.
So I'll say it again to make sure you've seen it.
Okay, so let's everybody. I hope you're enjoying the scape pig.
I'm not sure. I'm not saying no. not really
Okay.
thought about it. I would need more time to consider that.
So I was then thinking that obviously, so where do we take this stuff? Well, of course, that then Jesus' death on the cross. That's where the scapegoat image then gets developed, isn't it? So can you make some links there? I don't know. And then so we can take them to Christ into his death on the cross. This stuff that oppresses us, this stuff that puts us down, our anger, our jealousy, our bitterness, whatever it is. That's the place to take it. But that also, it's good to share that with others, that so you don't just bottle it up, and that it's got to go somewhere. It's got to. That's what I was sort of wondering from it.
See, for me, it's not really a story of that torment, but I suppose it could be. It's always been a little bit more of a story of oppression from outside forces. So not only, I feel the demons are more like a sign of oppression that you can't control, outside forces rather than within. And of course, the man has been chained and shackled by the people of the village because they are fearful whether he damages himself or whether he damages them.
So in one sense, I'm reading it more as a kind of an individual story, perhaps, or as a, in one sense, your things from elephant number one around how do we interpret this today in terms of, but actually you're also a la Ched Myers seeing it as a more kind of society.
Yeah.
But they're
More,
they can both be right. I'm not saying that, you can interpret this in either way then, can't you? You can take either of those readings.
It's just with mine, this stuff doesn't have to go somewhere. I mean, does it have to go somewhere?
Well, it does in the story.
It does it in the story, but again, not because it has to, perhaps. Maybe.
Okay, well, I'm just trying to. I don't think I think that's. I want to say that's a legit. So what's going on then? Unless what is going on then with these demons being sent into the pigs and then them running down the hillside? What they say don't send us back into the abyss, don't they? I don't quite know what difference it makes for them to go into the pigs and so on. I don't know where they then go, but what's going on with that?
I don't know, but
I mean, in terms of your metaphor of them being like the Roman, are they kind of going in and is Jesus kind of then going to say, well, actually, as you get freed from this stuff, or society gets freed from this stuff, then the authorities themselves kind of turn in on themselves, and it all goes. Is that kind of?
And it all goes. Well, I think it was supposed to be funny. I think it
Yeah,
was
yeah,
supposed.
fair enough.
I think it was just supposed to be an image that would make them laugh. That, like, yes,
almost like you can a dictator can cope with fighting you, but don't laugh at them.
Yes. Well, also, yeah, if you'd been oppressed, I suppose. Let's take it right down personally. So your school bully, if something had happened to them, or you had this idea that something might happen to them, you might just be amused that that would happen. That sort of do the demons have to go somewhere if they are demons? It feels so God should be able to do it without that, doesn't it? I suppose I had always just
as my Old Testament lecturer used to say at St. John's, I'm just a simple Bible believing Christian. I'm just reading what it says in the story. He sends them into the pigs. What is going on there?
Can't believe you quoted St. John's to me. That's terrible. Well, for me, that is Jesus making a bit of a show to make sure everybody knows and everybody gets the message of freedom. That's what how I had always read it. I'm not sure that I'm right. Now you're questioning me, but that's how
I think it could be. I think all these interpretations are valid. I think what I'm saying is there's this sense of, even if you think of it on a more personal level, you've got to do something with this stuff. It's got to go somewhere, and I think that's an interesting way of doing it. We bring it to Christ at the cross, developing the sort of scapegoat idea, but actually, that's why it's good to go to counseling or to process our trauma or to you know, that all these things have their place, that, you know, because they help us to process this stuff out, and it's got to go somewhere. I think that's a reasonable message to. I think that's probably the line I'm going to go down on Sunday with it, but I need to reflect on your kind of humorous reading of it within a more sort of sociological or societal level. Is interesting.
Okay, so my final question, because I think we're about due to wrap
We
up.
are about done. Yeah.
Is if it's got to go somewhere and you're going to use that to kind of take it to the cross, are you then feeding that into penal substitution?
Oh, well,
As
thanks. We just said we're going to finish, right? So we've got about a minute. No, because I don't necessarily think you have to have a penal substitutionary atonement, though we definitely don't have time to unpack this now. But I do believe
that's not the scapegoat kind of idea that you're looking at then.
I think what I'm looking at, and I hadn't thought of it in those terms, but I think what I'm looking at the cross is that Christ takes all of our, well, he fully identifies with us as human beings, and all of our mess and suffering and sin and alienation and all those things that provoke these things in us, and that all of those things are seen at the cross in one sense, and Christ takes them. I don't think you have to have a
no, that makes sense.
without getting into I don't necessarily think that means that I'm saying, or not saying necessarily, because I'm not wanting to really get into that discussion around a penal substitution of the atonement.
But it was my first thoughts, which was surprising me that you were going that way. Okay, that makes more sense to me. Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Okay, well, good luck.
We hope that if you've stuck with us this long, that might be some. Oh, what is I think it is a difficult passage, because I think it is so, kind of foreign to our world. But I think there's a lot in it which actually has been really helpful to discuss with you and think about, because I've now I'll go and write something about it.
I'm not preaching this week, so good
luck. There you go then. So you can sit back and listen to, who are you listening to?
Reverend Andy Rowland.
Oh, there you go. Well, you can see what he makes of it. Well, thank you everyone for listening, and we will be back next week with some more thoughts about Trinity 2.
We will indeed. Take care.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to In Conversation with Jennie and Mark. Please subscribe for more episodes on all the usual podcast platforms.